beautiful city of Qualiakona in Big Island, Hawaii. My name is Jong-woo Han. I am the president of Korean War Legacy Foundation, which has more than 1,500 interviews of Korean War veterans, not only from the United States, but also other 21 countries. We did this interview to preserve your memory, first of all, because it's been already more than 70 years ago, and we want to honor your service as a Korean War veteran. But most importantly, Korean War has been known as forgotten war. Not too many descriptions in our history textbook for our young generation. So we will make this interview into curricular resources so that teachers can actually use your direct witnesses of Korea or part of as a Korean War veterans when they talk about the Korean War in the context of Cold War. Okay? So it's great honor and pleasure to meet you, sir, and thank you for receiving me here in your beautiful house, right? The beach right over there, not too far from here. And please introduce yourself. What is your name?
David Simon.
Can you spell it?
David Simon.
Very easy name, David Simon. What is your birthday?
August 1st, 1931.
So you are now 90-year-old?
90.
Just 90. And where were you born?
I was born in Brooklyn.
So, you are from New York State. And tell me about your parents and your siblings when you were growing up. What did they do and how many siblings did you have?
I had two sisters, but I wasn't raised with them. I was raised as an orphan. I was sent to an orphanage when I was 5 years old.
What happened to your parents?
Well, that was during the Great Depression.
Uh-huh.
And my father just disappeared and never saw him again. A month or so after I was born.
I'm so sorry.
I guess he wasn't very happy with my mother.
Oh. So you were raised where?
In an orphanage.
Orphanage. And so tell me about the school you went through. Did they allow you to attend the school?
Yes.
So what school did you graduate? High school in Brooklyn?
I graduated Pleasantville High School.
Westville?
Pleasantville.
Pleasantville.
In Pleasantville, New York.
When did you graduate?
Pardon me?
When did you graduate high school?
When did I graduate?
Yeah.
Well, I was 18 years old. I don't remember the year. What, 19?
18, so 1949.
Yeah, that's good. Very good.
Yeah.
He's quick.
I'm still young. So, in your school, did anybody teach about Korea in geography class or history class?
No.
Nothing?
But I was personally interested in geography myself. So I studied a lot of other countries from maps and books.
And did you learn anything about Korea then?
Well, I knew where Korea was and I knew where the capitals were, where the capital was, but that's about it.
That's about it, right? So you are the only very few Korean War veteran who knew where Korea was in the map. That's very interesting. Very interesting. So after you graduate from high school, what did you do?
After I graduated from high school, I went to work for an uncle of mine who had a printing press.
Uh-huh.
A printing press in Brooklyn.
What's the name of it?
It was called Enterprise Press. I don't think it's there anymore. I'm sure it's not there anymore.
And so...
They taught me how the business of printing works, And of course, we didn't do any printing of maps there because there was no war, but it was they printed advertisements mostly.
Mm-hmm. So you learn how to print all those things.
Pardon me?
You learn how to press those things. Print.
Print. You learn how to print.
Oh yeah.
Good. Very good.
Don't look over that.
And when did you know and how did you know the Korean War broke out? Was it through newspaper or radio or what happened? How did you come to know about it?
Well, I had enlisted in the army in 1950, and me and a buddy of mine enlisted in the army together, and they sent him off to Europe, and they sent me. I ended up going towards Korea.
Mm-hmm. So, do you remember what month did you?
No, I don't. When I enlisted in the service, the war had not started yet. And I had, since I had a printing background, they sent me to a printing school in Fort Belvoir, Virginia.
Mm. And then?
I stayed there a couple of months in that school.
Yes.
Maybe 3, I don't remember exactly. And then while I was there, the war broke out.
Uh-huh.
And so I finished the school, and they sent me to go to Korea. They put me on a ship with about 2,000 other people,
Yeah.
other soldiers. It was called the Breckenridge. And so it was very slow troop ship, and it took a couple of weeks to get towards Korea. In fact, longer. But what happened was they stopped in Sasebo,
Yeah.
in Japan, and they called my name off, and they said, "You're not going to Korea.
Mm.
We need you to go to 64th Engineer Topo Battalion in Tokyo."
64th Engineer what?
Topographic.
Topographic, yes.
64th Engineer Topographic Battalion to print maps.
Mm.
So when I got there, I found out that they were doing only maps, topographic maps,
Mm-hmm.
large-scale topographic maps for the Korean War effort. And so I started working there, and a few months later, I was cleaning the printing press, and the wheels were going around, and I stuck my finger on to pull off a little piece of paper that got stuck in there,
Yeah.
and my hand went right in it.
Oh boy.
But it was between rubber wheels, not steel wheels.
Wow.
So they cleaned me up. I was bleeding all over, and it was red ink. They were printing, I think we were printing roads on the road map. And so they cleaned me up, and a week later they said, "We're going to send you up to to work in the
Mecca?
forestry building in Tokyo. You know what the forestry building is?
Yep.
Yeah.
MacArthur's?
Huh?
That's the MacArthur's.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, MacArthur's headquarters was the Daiichi building.
Right. Daiichi.
That was the main big building. And right next to it, very close, was the forestry building.
Uh-huh.
And when I got there, I was attached to 72nd Engineer Survey Detachment. 72nd Engineer Survey Detachment, which was actually part of the 64th Engineers in the Isetan in Tokyo.
Mm.
Did I mention that the 64th Engineer was in the Isetan department store at that time?
No.
Yeah, they had taken over the top floors because it was a military thing. The war was just over. And they taken over the top floors. They made it for military use.
But let me ask this question. You were supposed to be working in the topographic department to make maps, right? But you were wounded because of that accident. Is that because you were wounded to be brought back to the MacArthur's headquarters, or was that because you had an experience working in the press in Brooklyn? Why were you brought to that? Why did you?
What was what?
Why did they change your job?
Oh, because I got my hand in there, and it was. They didn't want me to. They didn't want me to do that again.
Okay.
So they didn't have another job except printing there, so they transferred me to
Got it.
downtown Tokyo, where the forestry building was.
Yep.
Actually, I was assigned to the 72nd Engineer Survey Detachment, which was just 14 people.
Yeah.
It was one major, and it was 14 enlisted. And I'm trying to recollect my mind here. The 72nd was actually technically part of the 64th, which was in Isetan.
I see.
So even though I was working in downtown Tokyo in the forestry building, I was assigned on paper to the 64th Engineer
I see.
Topographic Battalion.
So what kind of work did you do in that 72nd engineer?
Well, they had an office with a map library, and someone who was working there before was transferred out. They got discharged or something like that. So I was sent in there, and I was a corporal at the time.
Yep.
And I had one private first class male and another private first class female working in that office.
I see.
And since I was a corporal, that left me in charge. So that was the job I was doing, was supervising that map library. There are thousands of maps, but they were all topographic maps. No maps of countries or anything like that. It was all of Korea.
All about Korea.
Yeah.
Who actually made that whole map? Was it Japanese or was
The original maps was made by the Japanese. They were very good at that map making.
Uh-huh.
But theirs was in Japanese language and kanji. And when we went to the 64th Engineers, they confiscated all those maps from
Right.
the Japanese. You okay?
Yeah, and
co-
so what did they do with that maps made by the Japanese?
They were used to make, I don't really know what happened to it finally, but they were used to make English maps, English language maps. But the English maps were different. They were in color,
Uh-huh.
multiple printings, different colors, and so forth. I don't know what happened to the original Japanese maps.
So were all those maps reprinted, translated into English to do what? To give more maps to the American soldiers?
They were making maps to give to the American soldiers in Korea, right?
In Korea.
Oh yeah, we had been printing thousands of maps. It's not just a couple maps. We printed when I was working in the 64th Engineers Topo Battalion. They printed stacks of maps that high, like that. Thousands, and then they shipped them to Korea.
So that the soldiers in Korea were able to use that for their operations.
Right, exactly,
Good.
exactly. But they couldn't use the Korean language maps because they couldn't read them.
Exactly. That was the kind of confusion. You know, do you know the 1st Marine Division fought against Chinese in Chosen Few? You know Chosen Few, right? You know Chosen Few.
Where?
Chosen Few battle.
Oh yeah,
Chosen.
okay.
But that is the Japanese pronunciation of Chinese character, and the actual Korean pronunciation of that Chinese character is Jangjin. Jangjin.
Jangjin.
But Japanese, they pronounce it as chosen. That's why it's a chosen battle to the American soldiers. But for Koreans, it's a Jangjin battle. So there has been some sort of confusions. So your working and your experience working in that topographic map making office tells about the differences between Japanese pronunciation and Korean pronunciation of Chinese character. It's very interesting. I never met you. I mean, I never met Korean War veterans who did actually working in the map. So this is very good. So what happened to you? How long did you work there in the department?
I worked there about a year and a half.
Yeah.
And then it come time for me to get out of the Army. So they asked me to stay. And I said, I'll stay if you promote me to sergeant first.
Yeah.
And they said they can't do that. And I said, okay, I'm going. So incidentally, even though we were assigned to the forestry building to do work, we had our lodging in Eastertown. We had the beds and everything there. Okay, so I went back to the Eastertown. They refused to promote me. They said they'll promote me after I re-enlist.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do that, so I went back to the Eastertown, and a few days later I walked out of there. I saluted the guard at the entrance.
Yeah.
And I said goodbye. They gave me one set of fatigues I could keep, and a shovel.
Shovel.
You see those military shovels?
Yeah, yeah.
They fold like that.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know why they told me I could keep that shovel. I don't know. I don't have it anymore. I had it for a long time,
Okay.
and I had my dog tags, and then I left.
Okay. So, did you learn anything about Korea, or did you learn anything about the Korean War that actually was going on there? Because you were there in 1954, 50 and 51, right? Right?
In Japan.
Yeah. So did you hear anything about what's going on in Korea from anybody?
Yeah, there is. Ron Cole knows about this guy, Herb Lum.
Hmm?
Herb Lum was, unfortunately, he died a few months ago.
Yep.
Herb Lum was an active participant in it.
Well, I'm talking about when you were in Japan, when you were in the office.
Oh, no, when I was in there?
Yeah, did you learn anything about what's going on in Korea?
Well, just from the news,
Yeah.
yeah.
Anything going around in MacArthur's headquarters that you learn about what was going on in Korea? Did you talk to anybody that working in the MacArthur's headquarters about the Korean War?
No.
If you tell me anything that you knew at the time when you were working at the,
Yeah.
you know,
No, I can't say much about that. No.
okay. All right. So let me talk about the life in Japan. How was it? Did you enjoy the time in Japan?
Yeah. Well, I had a girlfriend. so that made.
How long you been married with Linda?
I got a girlfriend who I married, a Japanese girl.
You married there?
Yeah, I married her there, right?
Uh-huh.
And I got a job working as a civilian in the forestry building, same place.
Huh.
And I met her. She was walking down the hallway every day to go to lunch or whatever, and I flirted with her, and eventually we went out, and we ended up getting married.
I see. Did she come to United States with you?
Yeah.
Ah, okay. So how much were you paid as a corporal at the time?
Wow.
Just a couple thousand?
No. A month?
A month.
No.
About 200 or 150?
Yeah, about 150, I would say.
150. So about the same salary that the corporal got in Korea.
Yeah.
What did you do with that money? You spent all the money for your girlfriend or what
Well, that
happened?
was a lot of money in Japan.
Okay. Tell me, give me the example. With $1 or $10, what were you able to do in Japan at the time?
The exchange rate in Japan for Japanese yen was 360 yen to $1, which, I don't know if you're familiar with that, was a lot of money. So the American dollar went a long way.
Of course. A lot of mileage in it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, and eventually, years later, they changed it, and they get a fixed rate now. I think it's only 100 yen a dollar.
Uh-huh. Did you send some money back to your family?
I didn't have any family.
Any family. So what did you do? Did you put everything into savings or you spent everything?
Yeah, pretty much spent everything.
You had a good life in Japan.
Yeah, it wasn't bad.
Okay.
But I feel very fortunate that when that ship went, when I was on a Breckenridge, was going to Korea with 1,000 other men, young men, some of them were teenagers even. At that time, the North Koreans were pushing down towards Busan.
Mm-hmm.
And they were sent, all those infantry guys that were on the ship with me, they were all sent into Busan to fight the whole line. And the perimeter around Busan was very small. because the North Koreans had pushed down
Yeah.
quite a bit. And I feel very fortunate because a lot of those guys died.
Yeah.
A lot of them didn't make it.
So you've been very fortunate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just luck. Only because I had a printing background.
Exactly. See, that's how our life's been shaped by something.
You never know.
Yeah, you never know, and very unusual. But small things will change your whole life.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep. So after you come back from Japan, what did you do here in the United States as a civilian?
After I came back from Japan.
Yeah.
Well, we had 3 children. My wife came back with me. Eventually, we had 3 children. 3 boys. Boys.
All born in Japan.
All boys.
Oh.
And we still have 3 boys. We got divorced about 25 years.
Statehood, right? What year did you come back to Hawaii from Japan? 19, from the statehood.
Anyway, we got divorced, and then eventually, the girl who was cutting my hair said, I know a nice, sweet lady for you to hook up with. So then I decided to try that, and that's where I met Linda.
They were married 40 years, this Japanese.
Uh-huh. And then you met Linda.
Yeah,
Then I met Linda, and we've been married now how many years?
23.
23? 23 years.
You had too much luck.
Yeah.
It's not fair, huh?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, my life has been very fortunate, especially because so many guys died. And I felt bad about that, but I couldn't do anything about that. I didn't ask to be pulled off. I don't know how they knew my name, even. There's no computers in those days.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And 1,000+ men on a ship, they called out my name to get off at Sasebo to go up to Tokyo.
Yeah.
David, when you were in intelligence, what did you do?
What?
When you were in intelligence in Japan, what did you do?
What?
When
You were in the intelligence.
in Japan, what did you do?
That's what I said. I had the it was intelligence division of the 72nd intelligence division of GHQ.
Mm-hmm.
Engineer Intelligence Division, GHQ.
Yeah. What did you do there?
Primarily, we just maintained the library,
Library, okay.
map library.
I see.
We had thousands of maps.
Mm-hmm.
When new maps came in, we had to take some of them and fold them up, punch holes in them, put them in big giant folders, and then when anybody came to see a map of someplace in Korea like Daegu, I could open up the map and show it to them.
Mm-hmm.
And we had some extras, so we could give him a copy.
Got it. Anything that you remember you did something other than the map making or map management with regard to the Korean War? Anything you remember? Any episode you remember?
No,
No?
it's too long ago to remember little things.
Yeah. How was MacArthur there? I mean, how did people think of MacArthur and his?
Well, the MacArthur was after the invasion of Incheon,
Yeah.
MacArthur decided to push up to North Korea. He made a mistake because he wasn't supposed to do that, and I don't remember who was president, but the president fired him.
President Truman fired him.
Yeah,
Yep,
okay.
Yep.
he got fired, and then he was replaced by Ridgway.
Right. But did you know anything about what's going on with the MacArthur headquarters at the time? Something that you knew?
You know, all I knew was that I didn't even know they were going to invade Incheon.
Mm-hmm.
It was all secret. And he invaded Incheon, and the worst part was he started going north. And
Right.
that's what made the
China.
North Korea, China come down and support the North Koreans.
Yep.
And so somewhere along the line there, the president was very pissed off.
Yep. So you were not in the Korean theater. You were not in the Korean theater, but you were in Japan working on the map so that the soldiers in Korea can actually use it. So that's your contribution as a Korean
Right.
War veteran.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. And have you been back to Korea after that?
I had some opportunities to do that, but I never went.
Okay. And so do you know now how Korean economy is now? Korean economy, how well is it?
South Korea?
Yes, yes.
Oh, very well.
How do you know?
They're one of the richest countries in Asia. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But at the time when you were in Japan, 1950-51, Korea was one of the poorest country in the world. So what do you think about this whole transformation from very poor, mostly devastated, now it's the 10th largest economy in the world. Can you believe that?
Well, I think what it was is that they had free enterprise in South Korea, and North Korea they don't. So the communists have a different way of doing things, and South Korea, the people were allowed to establish companies, make money, and so forth like that. So they really grew. And they were, at one point, on par with Japan as far as the economy was concerned.
Right. Yeah, the capitalism worked, not in the North, but in South Korea. So they became 10th largest economy in the world.
Yeah.
And one of the most substantive democracy in whole East Asia.
Yeah.
Very.
Well, recently, there's been talk about them having meetings or conferences with the North Koreans.
Yep.
But I don't know what'll ever come of that. Because I don't think the North Koreans want to give up their little empire. Because it's the high people
Yep.
that high-ranking people that don't want to give up their
Not voluntarily.
right.
Right.
Exactly.
Any other message to this interview that your work related to the Korean War? Any other episode or message that you want to leave to this interview about you as Korean War veteran?
Well, you know, I don't call myself a Korean War veteran because I wasn't in the Korean War, per se. I was in the service at the time of the Korean War.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not really qualified to give advice to people like...
Right, but still you are Korean War veteran. Everybody who served during 1950 to 55 are Korean War era
I
veteran.
got the badges, the ribbons. They gave it to me, even though I was assigned in Japan.
Yep,
Yeah.
sure, of course. But also you contributed to the Korean War because your work as a map management department was critical. Without map, soldiers couldn't fight.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. David, thank you again for sharing your story and your honorable service in Japan to manage the maps that made by the Japanese and still translated it into English and provided it to the Korean soldier. And that is your legacy as a Korean War veteran. Thank you again.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, sir.